Okay, cool. So, gonna be here talking about sizing your OPSEC threats. It's a guide for the mildly paranoid. It's not gonna be great, but we're gonna cover all the basics here. Do a little bit of technical talk, but a lot of this is gonna be super high level. So, introduction. I'm ser3n1ty. I've been studying information security for about 3 years. And then there's my Twitter and my website. There's not much on the website, but don't worry about that. We'll be adding more stuff shortly. We're gonna look at some of the common groups of threats. These are more common that you'll come across. You got script kiddies. They're gonna have a low amount of engagement, a low amount of resources. They're not gonna be too active. They're gonna give up after like 15 minutes of trying to find you. You got stalkers. They're gonna have more motivation. They're gonna be going after you probably over multiple days or weeks. Who knows how long they're going after you, but they might not have the best resources still. We have private investigators. They'll probably have medium to high engagement. They're getting paid after all, so they'll have more resources than a stalker would. They'll have access to some things like private databases. And they'll know how to use their resources effectively. And then you got nation states and advanced persistent threats, which are high engagement and high amounts of resources. Essentially, if you're worried about nation states, you're probably already done for. But the first important thing is asking yourself, what is my threat level? This is the first step in planning out anything regarding your OPSEC. Think about what you're doing for work. Are you going into, for a government position? Is there sensitive information that you're withholding? Do you take that sensitive information with you home? Is there, sorry, give me a second. All right. Anyways, yeah. Think about what you do for work. Assess your threat levels at work, and then also think about your hobbies. Information security can be a hobby, but do you have any sensitive data from that hobby that your attacker would want? Do you have firearms at your house? If you're a big firearms fan, that would be that would put you at higher risk for certain threats, like someone who might want to rob your home would prefer to take that or take your items. What data do you have access to? Are you a banker? Do you have access to people's PII? That kind of data would also be valuable. Other valuable items would just be, cars, homes, physical items, that you may want to consider being put in your threat level for OPSEC. So more on the basic ones like script kiddies. They're generally low engagement. They don't have good amounts of resources, or if they do, they don't know how to use them. Most of the time, script kiddies, interacting with them is they're just going to try and grab your IP or do small amounts of OSINT to scare you. Sometimes they'll find your home address and threaten to swat you. And the mitigation to getting rid of them is really simple. If you want to create a new handle that's not tied to any other online entity, it's going to be really hard for them to figure out who you are unless they're using a peer-to-peer networking system, which even then, a proxy or a VPN could easily get rid of them. They're not going to push on too much. Now, stalkers, they're going to have more motivation than script kiddie. Maybe they're trying to, find where you live. They will resort to physical reconnaissance as well as OSINT if they can. You got to be aware of your surroundings when you're walking places. Situational awareness is super important. So having this mitigation would be, if you think you're being followed, don't go home. Keep walking. Go to, a public place like a park or a mall or something like that. On the net, I would say the mitigation would be about the same. You don't want to be posting a lot of pictures or a lot of personal information about yourself that would allow stalkers to locate you through something like geointelligence. Just try and limit the amount of information that would be findable on the net. Then you got private investigators. They're going to have a high motivation to investigate you. They're getting paid by someone to investigate you, most likely. They also have access to some private databases that normal people can't get access to because they're licensed for them. They're usually better at physical recon because they've been doing this for a number of years. And then mitigation would be limiting the amount of limiting severely what you're putting online. Like don't put anything online if you can. You could even do things like DMCA request takedowns to take down pictures of yourself or articles that mention your names. That would help prevent private investigators from, researching you. But I'm sure that if you're not aware of your situational awareness physically, they might be able to find you. We got nation states and advanced persistent threats. If they want you, they'll get you. They have a crazy amount of resources. They can, if it's your home country, like they likely know more about you than you know about yourself. They have a whole bunch of data from tons of companies to look at, where you've been, what purchases you've made, what cars you've owned, how long you've been in the country, etc. All of that information can easily be grabbed by them, and then they can just get you. The mitigation would be really intense. You'd need to be planning this out for probably years. And even if you're planning it out for years, you can't even guarantee that you're safe, because it's only going to take one time for you to mess up, and the nation states are going to get you, or advanced persistent threats. So those are like the four basics that we're gonna talk about when we're mitigating these. But some mitigation routes like VPNs. You're still trusting a third party with your data. Most companies are logging at an infrastructure level. Even if they say that they don't log, they probably have some sort of logs that would correlate data to you. So if you're trying to use it for, if you're trying to use a VPN to do bad stuff, government reaching out to a VPN and they have logs, probably not the best time. Don't use free VPNs. You're giving your data away to people. You probably don't want your ISP to see whatever you're doing, but even if you don't let your VPN or your ISP see what you're doing, and these ad trackers aren't tracking you from that activity, these free VPNs are just going to sell that data anyways to anybody. That's how they're going to pay for that infrastructure. A lot of people are going to ask, which VPN should I use? Obviously don't use free VPNs, but if you're going to choose a VPN provider that you're worried about, and you're worried about privacy, I think the most important thing would be something where it's hosted in a country that isn't your home country, or wouldn't work with your home country, or is in an unstable country, where there's civil war, or there's financial instability in that country. That would probably be your best bet for privacy. Also, countries with really good privacy laws, such as I think Sweden. And then any providers that accept prepaid cards or cryptocurrencies are the way to go. I wouldn't choose a VPN provider that wouldn't accept either of those. And then obviously read the terms of service, when you go to sign up for anything like that. That's just read the terms of service on everything. Now it's time for the darknet stuff. Ooh. Yeah, so VPNs and Tor. I've heard a lot of talk about this, but you can use a VPN with Tor, and if you do, you should be connecting to the VPN first, then to Tor. However, people like the EFF recommend not to use VPNs with Tor, as it's a lot of the information or a lot of the benefits that are given through using VPN and Tors isn't really super beneficial, and it could possibly correlate data usage between, the person at the exit node and the VPN provider with logs. So they could correlate data a lot easier, and it's probably not even worth it to use either of them, according to what the EFF is saying. There is an estimate that 80% of Tor exit nodes are being controlled by governments, military, and private companies anyways. So you don't even know who owns which exit nodes, and even if you're, let's say you have like a list of all these ones that are known to be governments, there's still exit nodes that pop up left and right that could be anyone. So be careful of that. And at the end of the day, all of these darknet things or services such as Freenet, I2P, email, those are all under surveillance anyways. Most of the private companies and the governments are already trying to survey them. And the rest that is there is pretty much memes and exit scams. Ton of exit scamming. There is like some website or there's some onion site that's you can hire a hitman for $50,000. FBI investigated it. All they said was it's probably just an exit scam. There was nothing malicious behind it. But if you want to look at alternatives, Freenet and I2P, I've looked at. I would recommend those if you're using them for anything. But that's all the stuff on the quote-unquote darknet. And then for using cryptocurrencies and currencies for being privacy focused, Bitcoin's readable. Anything with an open ledger is readable. If you're going to be using something with an open ledger, your best bet for privacy focused would be to tumble Bitcoin or open ledger cryptocurrencies before making any purchases. And then even then, I would just say use something like a closed ledger like Monero. It's just overall it's more secure, and right now even the IRS has a bounty on Monero because they can't crack into they can't see into it. So they're offering, I think it's like $500,000. So if y'all know how to do that, then go make some money. Use paper wallets or physical wallets. Don't use exchange platforms, and don't use online wallet services. That'll just allow them to possibly sell data or allow data to be correlated back to you. And if you're a privacy-focused individual, it's not beneficial to you. So just use paper wallets or physical wallets. Nation states are also starting to go back to ways of tracking physical cash. They used to do this, I think, in like the 1940s, where they would have like these ledgers of where they would of how cash would travel, and so they're doing that again to catch criminals. And if you're super privacy focused, I would say think about that at least, and how you would prevent tracking physical cash. If you're gonna buy anything that you want to not be associated with you, like let's say a burner phone, or let's say like a laptop or something like that, or you just don't want your credit card company from figuring out what you're buying, separate yourself from purchasing the currencies or products as much as possible. If you can go give a person, $30 and be like, hey, go into this Walmart and buy a phone for me, please. They're probably going to ask, why can't you do that yourself? But if you offer them a little bit more money, then they might go and purchase that for you. So then also we got physical OPSEC. Should be aware of cameras and facial recognition. Facial recognition is being huge now. A lot of stuff in China with like rioting and stuff, they're able to recognize who's out there and who's protesting. There's a lot of cool technology. I don't have the resources on the slide, but there's some camo that is supposed to prevent facial recognition through the camera recognizing each pattern as a face. And then there's some other stuff such as preventing flash photography by making the entire photo dark with reflective technologies. And then some of the facial recognition, like there's some camera, or like a camera, or sorry, it'll present an image over your face, and that would make it harder to get facial recognition. So be aware of that if you're worried about physical OPSEC. If people are taking pictures around you, make sure that you're trying not to get into those pictures. You don't know if they're going to post them online or what they're going to do. What technology are you carrying on you? If you're carrying a phone and a laptop and, an Apple Watch everywhere, your phone probably has GPS on, your Apple Watch probably has GPS on. They're probably sending data to Apple, and they're probably going to sell that data or use that data for whatever they want. So think about that. If you want to go somewhere, I would say your best bet, if you don't want anyone to know where you went, don't carry anything on you. No electronics. Are you using your credit card? If you're going to, if you don't carry any of your electronics, but then you go and make a credit card purchase at X place, that's going to show up that you purchased something at X place at X time. That correlation's pretty valuable. If your car has GPS, while it's not perfect, that would be able to correlate data between where you drive every day or what your driving habits are. So be aware of where you're driving if you're using a GPS. Apps that you're using, if you're using apps with permissions like, the flashlight apps on Google Play where they have, 50 million permissions, they'll probably take those locations that you've been, even though it's a flashlight, and then sell that data. Or more recently, like using Untapped, the beer social network thing, that'll show exactly where you've been, what beer you've had, who you're, where you're drinking it, if you liked it or not. So just be aware of those when you're also planning out your OPSEC. Compartmentalization too is really important. Don't cross-contaminate machines, accounts, or profiles with your real-life identity if you don't want it tied to your real-life identity. That's really important, because if you say that on one account that you're going to go get pizza, and then you're also going to get pizza on another account, those two accounts might be able to be interlinked between each other. So be aware of that. Also, isolating accounts to virtual machines and hardware is great. Try and keep them isolated if you can, but be aware that if you're doing hardcore compartmentalization like this, that it can be damaging to mental health. If you have a a compartment basically for each and every like hobby that you have. You might have 10 or 15 hobbies. That would be just insanely frustrating, at least for me, but also super tiring. So just be aware that that could have a really bad effect on your mental health. Just take everything into moderation. Physical isolation too. If you're posting from 3 or 4 different accounts and they're all from the same place, that can be correlated back to you as possible all like possible accounts. They're all just one person posting from them. A great way that I found to help out for compartmentalization though is creating fake backstories for accounts. It helps you, stick to the account and stick to posting. Like if you're going to post any information that would be considered identifiable, then you could create a fake backstory, a fake persona, etc. That will help stick to it, and you won't be able to contaminate other accounts as easily. Some other tips and tricks. Be paranoid. It's great if you think, what if that dude's following me? I mean, maybe he's not, but if that dude's following you, what are you going to do? What things could you change right now to prevent yourself from possibly being in danger? It only takes one mistake to ruin your operational security too. It's like if hackers only needing one thing, or needing a company to only get one thing wrong, it's the reverse for your operational security. If someone's hunting you, you only need to mess up once for them to be able to exploit that. And once they exploit that mistake, you could be in danger. So make sure that when you're building your security, that you're doing it consistently, that you have solid security, and that you've consolidated all of the risks. And then also the OODA loop. I love the OODA loop. It's probably one of the most useful things I've ever used. If you don't know what the OODA loop is, it's observe, orient, decide, and act. There's a couple articles out there as well to read up on it. It's amazing, and you can use it every day to improve your OPSEC, but also improve anything that you're doing. So use the OODA loop. Lying is obfuscation. It's kind of like making up fake backstories, and it's useful to throw people off. If you're casually dropping personal information like fake hair color, height, weight to throw people off, it's great for that, because I don't know, good luck trying to find a 6 foot tall, or like a 6'6" blue haired dude that's like 65 pounds. I mean, that's not really gonna happen, but throwing off those characteristics are gonna make it harder on people trying to find you or your information. Also, try not to disclose PII to random people or even businesses. I mean, businesses won't even disclose their private information to you, so why should you disclose your private information to them? But just try and prevent it if you can. It'll help you in the long run. Also, there's 3 conditions that have been talked about, and the 3 conditions are white, which is where you're not paying attention to your surroundings at all. You're on your phone, you're listening to music, you're spaced out, and at that point, you have a really high potential to get attacked by criminals or thieves trying to pickpocket you. You never want to be in a condition white state, because that's just, you have a high chance of getting exploited. There's also condition yellow, which is situational awareness is fully active. This is where the OODA loop is, I would say, essential. and you should be analyzing everything at all times. This is like your preferred state is to always be in condition yellow. And then condition red is you're in danger. Your fight or flight has been engaged. You need to, you need to act immediately. And so I do have a bunch of resources on additional OPSEC topics. This is just a example of the Navy's operational security stuff. It's not a lot of it, but you can get a sight into like maybe what they're doing. Oops. Hold on. Yeah. What they're doing, and then there's 3 OPSEC talks. I think one of them's on the OPSEC failures of spies, and then there's an RSA talk about OPSEC, and then using the OSINT framework as a OPSEC thing. It's great to check and see how much information can you trace from X profile. What information can you find using OSINT when you're creating these accounts? And then I put a Michael Basil book in here. I haven't read him yet, but I've heard great things about Michael Basil, and I'm actually going to be picking up this week to read it. And then Googling online privacy guides. It's not going to be perfect. There's going to be some failures in their privacy guides, but it might give you ideas or new things to try out when you're building OPSEC. There's also surveillance self-defense by the EFF and developing situational awareness. And I would highly recommend, if you haven't developed situational awareness, to start now. And now it's time for the Q&A. Hold on, how are we, Waffles, how are we handling the Q&A? Oh, he left. Okay. Yeah, I guess just, you don't have to use mics. You can just, you know what, just type in voice text general, and I'll answer questions as I can. What is the purpose of Tor? Like, what does it stop? I mean, Tor is talked about with being anonymous, but 4chan is also anonymous, so what exactly is the difference? Tor is meant to tunnel your traffic through multiple exit nodes to anonymize that traffic. It was also originally developed by the Navy. So they were trying to come up with an anonymous network to send over their traffic. And so while 4chan might be anonymous when you're posting, there's still a lot of data from you that's being sent to the network to post on 4chan, whereas Tor is encrypting the data as it goes, and only the... Hold on, sorry. I'm getting the DMs and pings as it goes. Hopefully, that's probably not the best explanation right now, but I'll also type it up for you. Was this presentation on Google Slides? Yes, it was, because I did not use anything else to... I was lazy and I used Google Slides. Does a VPN truly help protect me being anonymous, and does using Tor in a VPN help improve my anonymity? A VPN might protect you from, you know, your ISP figuring out what data what you're doing. But I mean, overall, and it might protect from things like man-in-the-middle attacks, but personally, I think that you would have to use additional measurements with a VPN, such as, you know, purchasing a prepaid credit card with cash that you've never, you know, that you traded with somebody, and using it only at certain places where it wouldn't be, you know, correlated with your phone. But I don't think by itself it would truly help you protect from being anonymous. And a Tor and a VPN, Tor might help, but I don't think that using both is a great move. I think there's more correlation that can be made between using both of them at the same time. You mentioned how that running compartmentalized profiles can be a source of mental stress. How do you manage that stress? That's a really good question, actually. Personally, if I'm running compartmentalized profiles a lot and I notice that it's a lot of stress, I will purposely get rid of those profiles or find a way to to converge them together. If there's like 2 or 3 profiles, I'm like, I don't mind. I can tie this to this and it won't be a big deal. But a lot of stress is doing hobbies outside of this, or stress relief is hobbies outside of this, or, you know, going for a walk. Actually, any physical exercise helps me manage that stress a lot, but it's going to be different for everyone. So take that into account. If you get stressed out really easily, try to find ways so that it's not super impactful on you. Are different aliases all over the internet a good security practice to protect yourself alongside with different emails for every account? Overall, yeah, you could do that, and I would think it would be a decent security practice, especially if you're not sharing passwords across them. But I think that overall it would still be pretty solid. It would just be, really stressful. So yeah. Do you suggest privacy-oriented Linux distros like Unix? I have tested out Unix, CubesOS, and I have used Tails a little bit. They are definitely something I would recommend if you're privacy focused, but I wouldn't use them as a daily distro per se unless you're in super sensitive work. There are some pretty cool privacy-oriented Linux distros out there, but I would also take the time to secure them, harden the kernel, etc. If, hypothetically speaking, I was to watch a video of adults having intercourse... Okay, never mind. What measurements should I use so as to prevent my ISP from seeing what kinds of degeneracy I would hypothetically be looking at? Is a VPN truly enough to protect the toe videos? So, yeah, a VPN would probably be solid to preventing them from seeing your degeneracy. But I guess if you are worried about that, like your VPN, just make sure that they're not selling data to other people, and your ISP wouldn't be seeing that traffic. how possible is it that certain companies or certain services detect that you are using a VPN and block you from accessing this anonymously in an easy way? So, things like Netflix, actually, I think Hulu too, they have a block list of just all of these, like common IPs that are used to VPNs. So if they detect that your request is coming from one of those IPs, it just won't go through. It won't load. You won't be able to access the service. It's definitely possible that they're out there. I don't know how many companies are doing that, but there are definitely services out there and ways to prevent people from using a VPN and visiting Netflix, especially to do things like evading region locks for videos. Why would you run compartmentalized profiles? You would run them so that they can't build a solid profile of who you are. If I only have a compartmentalized profile regarding archery, and I only talk about archery on that profile, if someone were to do OSINT on that profile and try and figure out what other things I was into, they wouldn't have anything, or they wouldn't have much, because I'm only talking about archery on that profile. So that's probably why that's a decent reason why you would run compartmentalized profiles. That's what, yeah. Thanks for Todd. Okay, cool. Adding on to my previous question, how can you both have a different alias for every site, yet still be identifiable by, say, your friends? I mean, if you're sharing with your friends, which like which profiles you're associated with, or if you're telling them, like, oh, I'm into this and that, and they all notice, the same typing patterns and stuff like that, which can also identify people. I will post an article if I can find it, that was talking about identifying people based off of how they type. It's actually pretty cool. So, and also your friends probably also physically identify you, so they'll be able to tell who you are, and then if you're talking about posting X and Y to them, then they would be able to tell which aliases you are, if they're also into those. Does using dark mode really make you a better hacker? Yes, it does. Use dark mode. It saves your eyes. Is it worth using Windows 8.1 over Windows 10 for privacy, or is that just schizo tier? I would say use Windows 10 over Windows 8.1 because there's going to be, a bigger group of people that are using Windows 10, and also there's active security updates for Windows 10. I would say that both are not great for privacy. But if I were to be at that point where I'm using that, I would consider the one that has the bigger user base, or the one that's most marketable right now. Would you recommend renting your own server and running a VPN through that for better privacy? Yeah, I would say renting your own virtual private server and then setting up a VPN for better privacy is decent, but you still have to worry about, in the end, the infrastructure below that virtual private server. If you're setting it up in a country with like civil war or unstable, or it doesn't work with your main country, that's probably a good way to go. but they still could be logging. There's a lot of data that could still be getting out there. Can the same issue with VPN companies being said to log cell data apply to normal proxy servers? I don't know if there's a lot of proxy servers that sell data. I haven't done a lot with random proxy servers, so I wouldn't be able to tell you that. But I will do some research and get back to you on that. When starting OPSEC as a beginner, what steps should I take to get started? I would say first, definitely ask yourself what threats are you looking at, and then if you're building those threats, or as you're trying to figure out what threats you're going to be dealing with, start building profiles and just test out things, see if you can pick up, if you can correlate yourself back to, you won't have a ton of resources to be able to do something like a nation state would, but you would be able to tell if you could correlate X account back to yourself through what you're posting on that account. What OS would be ideal for privacy? One that you wrote yourself. But actually, an OS that would be ideal for privacy, you could use Ubuntu or, Tails or any Linux distro. You could use Windows. I wouldn't recommend Windows, actually. But I would say ideal for privacy is the privacy-focused distros like Tails, Unix, CubeOS. Those are all pre-set up, and they don't have perfect privacy setups, but you could tinker with them and then build off of that. So I would say if you're worried about privacy, maybe go with a privacy-focused OS and build off of that OS and make it ideal for you. You mentioned intentionally disclosing PII to throw people off your trail. Wouldn't it be advantageous to create a believable profile instead of something like 6'6", blue hair, and 65 pounds? At that point, they know it's false and it defeats one's purpose of doing it. Yeah, I wouldn't say you're gonna do something like 6'6", blue hair, and 65 pounds. That's not believable at all. I would never say to. I would say create a believable profile. That would be your best bet. If you were like, yeah, I'm 5'11", I have blonde hair and I have blue eyes or something like that, that would be harder to figure out than, some dude who's 6'6" and has blue hair. What are some good modern day countries to store your data on? Like you mentioned how it's good to put on Civil War countries, which ones will you choose? That's a good question. I think it's Sweden that has good privacy laws. Also Switzerland, I know for sure has good privacy laws. Sweden, I think, does too. And then some countries, like if you're in the US and right now there's a lot of tension between US and Russia, or a lot more tension than there was earlier. It might be beneficial for you to, grab some VPN service or something in Russia, where they would be less likely to share that data with the US. So I think a lot of geopolitical study would have to go into that, to figuring out which countries would be right for you to store your data on. But I would choose personally something that isn't part of the 14 Eyes and has good privacy laws, or is just has decent infrastructure and is going through tough times. Like, I don't know, I think Myanmar has decent infrastructure, but they're going through a military coup right now. So doing something like that. What would be the top rated VPN for privacy in your opinion? There's a couple of sites that talk about the different, like a whole bunch of different VPNs and compares them. I don't have it on these resources, but I would say take a look at that. I personally use, I've used private internet access in the past, and it worked for me. But my data wasn't super sensitive. I just didn't want my ISP seeing what I was doing. That was it. Just trying to prevent man-in-the-middle attacks. So for privacy, I would say do a little bit of research and see if you can find something that works best for you. Is coffee truly drug-like? Yes. You can get addicted to caffeine and it's not fun. How would you become a private investigator with your OSINT skills? Different states, different countries have different processes of becoming private investigators. I know, I'm gonna throw Toaster out here. He's somewhere on the server. If you ping Toaster, he's a private investigator. He might be able to tell you some, but at least here in my state, I'm not able to become a private investigator unless I have, like, I think it's 3 to 5 years of experience as an intern working for, I think it's a law enforcement agency, and then I have to apply for a license to start practicing. So, yeah. I would say do some research on your locale and see what it would take to become a private investigator. Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, I have like 10 more minutes of answering questions, so feel free to send them. Is it true that VPNs store the user data on their website? If so, which VPNs do this? I'm going to say yes, it's probably true that they store user data on their website. I can't tell you which ones do and do not. I did check with there's like Molvad. I was looking at their VPN service, and all they had was just you needed to know their ID number, or like the ID number. Is there a recording of the talk? I came in late. Yes, I am recording it right now, and I will find a way to upload it onto the Laptop Hacking Coffee YouTube page, and then I will be posting it onto my blog site as well. So, yeah. How can I contribute to this community? Just be a part of it, you know. Sit in general. There's the industry-related and security-related tech channels. Feel free to go in there and talk. It's super easy to contribute. Just be a part of it, talk, and be a person, and then you'll be able to contribute in no time. What is the LHC YouTube channel? I found it a little bit ago. Hold on. See if I can find it here. Oh. should just be laptop hacking coffee. Yeah, it should just be laptop hacking coffee. I'll see if I can get a direct link for you in a second, because it's kind of hard to find. It took me like 5 minutes Google searching it. Oh yeah, CPAT's got it. Is Microsoft Coffee tool still a thing in Windows 10H? I don't know. That's the first time I've ever heard of that, so yeah. Cool.
Bakit may nagtotok? Nagtotok ba?
I'm gonna server mute that guy for a minute. Emacs or Vim. I've tried both. I personally like Vim a little bit more, but Emacs still has a little bit of place in my heart, so yeah. A really controversial answer right there, but is Nano truly dead or hated? It's definitely hated. I don't know about dead though. People still use it. All right, cool. Yeah, then I'll just wrap it up then. So thank you guys so much for coming to my TED Talk, and have a good day.